when you have emotional dysregulation with ADHD, it is caused by the way your brain is wired, and we're wired to feel emotions like anger, frustration, and hurt quite intensely, but our emotional reactivity pattern can be improved with proper tools and support. Hello, truth tellers. Welcome back to the ADHD Scapegoat podcast, where we talk about everything ADHD and scapegoating. I'm Angie.
I'm Jeremy, and today we're diving into ADHD emotional dysregulation, the added struggles of being the family scapegoat, and how being labeled dramatic for showing emotions impacts us deeply.
Yes, the inconvenient heart. It's very inconvenient to feel so deeply all of the time, but it's also it's also very like I wouldn't change it for the world. And we've discussed in previous episodes just how harmful toxic narratives are and how your words impact people. It matters. It's like things we teach our kids. You know, I was taught that when I was younger, not always from my family, but people just saying, you know, use your words, you know, your words matter, sticks and stones, you know, saying they never hurt you. And then they go, no, that's really mean. Let's not do that. But this episode, we want to talk about understanding emotional needs, validating emotions, as well as like some actionable strategies that we use in coaching or in our daily lives. And I want to start with the 7 emotional needs every person has that the holistic psychologist Nicole LaPera posted on her Instagram account. She has a ton of great information around toxic family dynamics and healing and understanding what's actually going on in your nervous system. So she's a great resource. We'll post her information in the show notes. But the 7 emotional needs that every person has. The first one's belonging. Belonging comes from knowing that we have purpose or meaning in our lives. Meaning can come from having a connection with our family, building a business or a career, or having a really supportive community. Safety. Safety comes from being in an environment where we can put down our defenses and be our authentic self. This means that when we're safe in our body, we can be in a parasympathetic state where we are more able to connect to ourselves and the people around us. Decompression. Today, we live in a very fast-paced, always connected lifestyle. This can be a lot for our nervous system. Decompression is really about having privacy, time, and space to just be in quiet with yourself. Autonomy. The easiest way to think of autonomy is that we have a say in our own lives. We get to choose our own values and how we exist in the world. This gives us self-confidence, self-trust, and resilience. Intimacy. We are deeply social creatures, and connection to other people is one of the most important needs we have. Emotional intimacy means someone else is attuned to us, interested in how we feel, and values the connection they have with us. In short, we're seen and appreciated for who we are, not what we can do for another person. Challenge and growth. We grow through challenge. When we have something we're working towards, we have an opportunity to solve problems, create, and to learn to trust ourselves. All of these things bring confidence and deeper levels of resilience. Self-connection. Just as we have a deep need to be connected to other people, we have a deep need to be connected to ourselves. A major part of this is having self-awareness of our own behaviors, thoughts, and reactions. This also includes our ability to self-soothe or to calm ourselves after stressful situations. So she says, take a minute to think about these. Are most of your emotional needs being met right now? And I love that list because I think, you know, there's different lists. Like Patrick Teahan has your personal Bill of Rights and things that you as a human being are given by just existing. Like that, those are your rights. Those, no one should take them from you. And this is just a great reminder of that, and how, yes, the parents by law are required the physical, shelter, food, and proper care in the physical sense, but how important these emotional needs are. So when you have emotional dysregulation with ADHD, it is caused by the way your brain is wired, and we're wired to feel emotions like anger, frustration, and hurt quite intensely, but our emotional reactivity pattern can be improved with proper tools and support. Without that support, it's just like the lack of filter in our brain. There's no filter coming out of our mouths either when we don't have those supports. So just a quick medical science backup to that. The way our sensitivity is linked to our ADHD is our amygdala, which is the emotional part of our brain. It gets hijacked when we're reacting to a threat that's real or perceived, like with rejection sensitivity, dysphoria. But it takes over our prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of our brain. And if you have rejection sensitivity, dysphoria, it causes extreme emotional responses to that rejection and criticism, and takes over your thinking. So since your brain struggles to turn off our emotional processing, it's constantly present, meaning we already have these executive function deficits that we're struggling with, and our impulses due to that are already more out of control than the neurotypical person. And then our emotional expression may not align with how we want to communicate. And then here we go, round and round and round and round. And when these emotional triggers come flooding in, when we're already overloaded and our amygdala has already hijacked our prefrontal cortex, which we talked about in the last episode of, being overloaded, that frustration that you can feel with these, you have unmet expectations, or you just fractured a relationship because you didn't have the tools and you were just emotionally overwhelmed. And there's sensory overload when all of these things are happening, and your emotions, and your body responds to emotional abuse like it's a physical threat. So when you're feeling misunderstood and you don't have a lifeline and you don't have a supportive person, it can physically feel defeating and overwhelming. So that's just in, just with negative messaging from just having ADHD, but adding that layer of family scapegoating, which we always said, like the negative messages we talked about a while back about how many more negative messages ADHDers receive, and then thinking about adding on, if that ADHDer is in the position as a family scapegoat, how many more that probably, if we could actually get an accurate statistic of that, what that would look like. But being unfairly blamed for family issues or labeled as the problem. So what we're taught in that family dynamic is that our feelings aren't valid. They don't matter. The family doesn't care. Like my family, didn't even, my feelings don't exist. Like they weren't even acknowledged. So increased self-doubt comes from that, and you do get heightened emotional responses. You feel less lovable, like you don't belong and they wish you weren't there. So when you're invalidated and criticized and shamed for natural emotional reactions, I sometimes say natural emotional reactions to harmful behavior, and you're being told you're fine, there she goes, Angie Weiner, you're nurtured to disassociate from having feelings, or my feelings don't matter. It's not safe to express them here.
And that's something too that I feel like we've gotten really good at with our kids, and we've helped my sister with her son too, in letting kids feel those emotions. So if they fall down, your instinct is, they fall and they say, my knee's bleeding. Your instinct is to say, you're fine. Let's get up and, and squash that scary feeling for them. But we've learned how important it is for them to express it and acknowledge, wow, that must have really hurt. That must have been scary when you fell. And it is shocking how much faster they come out of it and jump up and, actually, no, I'm fine. They've decided for themselves.
They decided, exactly. That's the difference.
When you suppress that.
And they're like, wait. They get confused because they're like, wait. No, this does hurt. I'm not fine. Why are you telling me this is fine? And they feel it's just confusing. So then the next time they feel that, they're confused. And then they don't feel safe to maybe speak up or say something. And to me, you don't want them going out into the world not being able to express and advocate for themselves. So like you said, the more you go, oh man, are you okay? What happened? Okay, once they're, if they're crying or if they're really upset or if they are they skinned their knee and they're bleeding and you get it all cleaned up. Okay, what happened? At that point, you can walk back and say, what happened? Oh yeah, we should probably not be looking down when we're riding our bike forward, or maybe we should pause. We're going really fast. We need to pause and look at where we're going. Or, oh, you know what? That sidewalk, I didn't see it either. You tripped right over the sidewalk. I didn't see it either. Man, we got to look at that. Maybe we'll remember that next time. Getting on their level of understanding, validating their feelings, and that's not babying them. That's helping them listen to their feelings and listen to what their experience is so they're able to communicate it.
Yeah, it's very much the opposite of babying them. It's that helps them process it so much quicker.
And you, like you said, in the future, they're deciding, they're like, oh man, I did that. No, but actually, I'm deciding I'm okay. Or I'm deciding, actually, this hurts way more than last time. Can I pause and go ice my knee? So you're taking that tiny bit of extra time initially when the incident first happens to pause and allow them to have their feelings and express them. And moving forward, you run into so many less issues. If you're constantly pushing someone's feelings down and invalidating them, it builds inside of them. The problems keep happening. And I think that's part of when these toxic people refuse to see reality and to see the harm that they're doing, or not even step back to self-reflect and go, oh yeah, why did I say that? They might have just responded in an unconscious way because that's the way they were raised, but just not even taking the time to pause and go, oh God, did I mean that? Why did I say that? What does that mean to me? That's just a tiny step that some people are just refusing to take, and they're passing this toxicity on to others. So the dramatic label, when you have feelings or you're expressing any feelings, is how these toxic families dismiss valid emotions and then perpetuate their control over the situation. So they try to make us feel small by dismissing us or trying to show us that it's not safe to show up as your authentic self. And some long-term effects of that could be you internalize that shame and you suppress your emotions and you put yourself in dangerous situations with dangerous people because you don't feel like it's safe to express your needs, or that no one cares about your needs. So why would you speak them anyway? So some strategies with emotional dysregulation for ADHD and scapegoating, some of the ADHD specific ones are identifying these emotional triggers and practicing different techniques that work for you. So I talked about how in therapy I first learned about therapy, and then again when I went through my coaching program, about when these emotional triggers come up, just writing them down. And I've also talked about this before, with coaching, you find your triggers and then you look at your tolerations. Okay, here are my triggers. What am I willing to tolerate, and for what amount of time am I giving this? And that's kind of a way to get you to start setting boundaries around that. But mindfulness techniques don't need to just be meditation, or I found this really great app that does moving meditation. So you're actually able to do, if you're doing a mindless activity, like if I'm folding clothes, I can be doing this mindfulness practice with this meditation. And it's brilliant because I can't just sit. So, but I color as a mindfulness activity, a technique to kind of clear my head when I'm feeling overwhelmed or overly emotional about something. So also some grounding exercises like deep breathing, or we've talked about naming the senses, especially for kids. Name one thing in the room that you can smell, something you can see, or, all those different things. Just something that works for you. And the only way you know what works for you is to try a couple different things. And helping you build emotional resilience by journaling. And like I said, talking about them with a safe person. So journaling, when I first started, was very factual. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I realized through therapy and coaching that my journaling was more of like a defense for the people that were harming me, because again, I had to build up a defense. Like I said in the last episode, I build up this defense to prove that my feelings were valid. And I was doing that in my journaling. So in my journaling, I was supposed to be talking about my feelings and being able to connect to my feelings. But what I was doing from my trauma training from my family of origin was documenting the validity of my feelings. And then as I started to discover that and realize that, I started working in, okay, this happened. Like I might still state facts and then go, and this is how it made me feel, or this is how I feel about it moving forward. And actually being able to tap into that. Part of navigating this through toxic family dynamics is recognizing these scapegoating patterns and not pretending that they don't exist. There is a name for these things, and I think a lot of times naming narcissism, or calling some situation toxic, or even saying this was abusive, is just using those words is so hard for people. But I think getting past the title or the name, like everything needs a name. Like even ADHD is a terrible name for what our brain is doing, but it gives it a name so that we have something to point to, a direction, a thing to work on. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that you are recognizing it and you're seeing it for what it is. And then you're also refusing to be told who you are in those situations. And setting boundaries, we'll talk about next week, but when others are dismissing you or criticizing you, and I think when you're coming from these toxic family dynamics, when you're told you're being dramatic because of your feelings, or you're told that you're whining about nothing, it feels like, no, I can be tougher. I I can put up with, this longer because I'm tough and I can take it and they're not going to break me. But you also don't need to take it to begin with. You don't need to put yourself in a situation where you need to endure this, which is something that took me, unfortunately, 40 years to learn. But renaming that dramatic label and reframing it and looking at it from your internal knowing is, I'm not too much. I feel deeply. And when they say, you take things too personally, I was just joking. No, I'm actually just great at picking up on subtleties that others may not see, and I can see through your bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can say that this is what I'm doing because you refuse to be accountable, but that's not what's actually happening. And I don't tell other people how to feel. So why would I allow someone else to tell me how I feel? And the next level for both ADHD and these toxic family dynamics is finding validation and self-compassion. So you need to validate your own emotions instead of waiting for others to do so. We talked about that in an episode with Val about needing that outside validation or believing that outside validation is the only thing that counts. And that's what you're trained to think when people want to have control over you or they want to make you smaller, is that listening to your gut is wrong, or listening to your gut is making you seem less stable. Like you're mentally unwell because you listen to your gut and you don't have, glaring proof in your face. But my feelings are my feelings. If I feel them more deeply than others, that doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them different. Just like a neurotypical brain and a neurodiverse brain, neither of them are wrong. They're just different. So they're both still valid. Your feelings are valid. My feelings are valid. And having honest human emotions doesn't make me or mentally unstable or too emotional. So I won't allow these people to gaslight me into believing that I am. And practicing that self-compassion by speaking to yourself the way you would a friend. I remember talking about this in therapy and going, oh, I'm doing all this with my kids and I'm able to, help them understand, yeah, if you do this, and I'm raising them in the way that I wish I would have been raised. But then I'm also saying to her at the same time, but I feel like such a failure and I feel like I'm, I can't manage all these things and I can't do, and she was like, would you talk to your kids that way? I was like, oh boy. Would you talk to your best friend that way? No. Oh my God, no. Okay, why are you talking to yourself that way? And I know a lot of people have heard that, but it's also a really hard thing to practice when you have been receiving negative messages all the time. And the thing is when you do try to say something kind about yourself, oh, someone's big for their britches, or, I don't even know. What did I say that wrong? It's like, you're too big for your britches. Like, yeah. You think you're something, or, oh, you're special. That attitude when you're just like, oh, I did really good. I'm really proud of myself. Or I did this thing that, I was struggling with. What? You're like you're dying to say some pun or...
No, I'm not.
What?
Is it always your grandmother that's saying these things?
No, but I just feel like there's these just like, ooh, who do you think you are? Like those icky, like why
are you so confident?
Why are those messages? Yeah. Right. What makes you so confident? Oh, yeah. It's ingrained in you. So if you're not being treated with basic human decency, which is the bare minimum, then that person doesn't deserve you. You deserve to be validated and have compassion for who you are as a human being. And that doesn't mean that conflict won't arise, or that doesn't mean that emotions sometimes don't get out of control, but being able to repair, to be accountable, and to express, like, I don't want to show up like that. Or, I'm sorry, I shut down your feelings during that conversation because I was feeling overwhelmed by A, B, and C. Here's where I'm at. Can we do this over? You're building that trust together. You're able to, and then you're able to build the trust, you're able to build the connection, but then you're also, when you go away from a situation like that, like even with us, if we like just have like a little snippy, like, because we're just overwhelmed at the end of the day and the kids, blah, 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 all the things are happening, right? And one of us is like a little attitude-y. And then we both bring it to each other and we say, oh, I'm sorry I did that. This is what was going on. I didn't mean it. It wasn't towards you. Or sometimes we'll bring it to each other. Hey, you did this thing. I don't know if you realized it, but that really hurt my feelings or whatever. And then we work through it. And not only is our connection closer, but I feel like it's validation that our feelings matter just by being able to work out that conflict with another person. Right?
And that's something that I've really had to work on. But I do feel closer to you when we just have those very frank conversations. I mean, this essentially happened last night.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Where I got snippy because I was trying to, for the past few days, I've just been very overwhelmed. And last night, I was trying to concentrate on reading something when we were having our, nightly decompress time together.
Which is where we just watch a show together.
Right,
usually,
we were watching Dateline. But, I didn't communicate that, hey, I just want to read this thing. It's going to give me peace of mind about something. I just need to finish this. And instead that I got snippy with you because I was like, I haven't had time today to do this. I need to do it now.
Right.
So
it was like you were trying to do a couple things at once, but you weren't communicating it. And then me saying something was bothersome, and I was like confused at why me saying. But
then we talked about it at the end of the night, and I said, okay, that was the wrong approach. I should have told you what I was doing. And I think that it also...
because it's not wrong that you wanted to read something by any means. I didn't know what was going on. I thought something else. Like, I thought you were just watching with me and I could talk to you about the show. And then I realized you were doing something else. And so it felt like there was a disconnect, right?
100%.
So I think just being able to it doesn't feel great in that moment when you have to bring it up necessarily. But I think knowing we're so safe with each other now after so many years of working through these things. It's scary at first, but when you see the outcome, when you see that, when you're communicating, and even us being on this podcast, we're communicating more authentically. We're able to share our story. We're able to help other people, and seeing how much just being able to do that is healing for us and for other people. It's just a realization that this open communication, sharing your feelings, it's not harming anyone by building conversation, by asking questions, by asking what someone's feeling. If you see that someone's feeling really emotional and just saying, is there anything I can do? What do you need right now? If someone can't do that, or they mock you for struggling, then I think you need to evaluate what is actually going on in that situation.
That happened last weekend where I was very dysregulated. I was very overwhelmed, and it was Sunday afternoon, and I said, I don't feel good right now. Can I go upstairs and lay down? And all you said was yes, or like, yeah, go for it. And I went up, and I felt so supported in that moment. It wasn't, you didn't roll your eyes and say, yeah, okay, fine. Just go, like, do whatever you have to do. It wasn't dismissive. You just said, yeah, of course. Then I was able to go up, I took a nap because that's what my body needed.
Right.
So I communicated that I wasn't feeling right. You supported me by saying, yeah, go do whatever you need to do. And instead of laying in bed worrying about like, oh, now she's got to handle this, or what are the kids doing? Or it was just, nope, she's supporting me in this moment. I rested and I came back downstairs and I felt 100 times better.
Well, and that's the whole thing, is like shaming someone for having these feelings or speaking up for what they need is only going to make the problem bigger, because how are you going to serve yourself and your communication, serve our relationship, or serve our kids, or any of the other things you have to do, if you don't have that space or that validation to honor the way you're feeling and what you need? So emotional dysregulation is part of ADHD, and it's not a flaw. It's just being aware of how your emotions impact you, and naming them is the first step to being able to manage it and to find something that works to support you. Toxic family dynamics amplify emotional struggles and don't define your worth. No one has the right to define your worth. No one has the right to abuse you, telling you you're worthless or showing you that they don't care by disregarding your feelings or invalidating them. It only shows who they are, not who you are. Taking some actionable strategies to manage your emotions and navigating these family dynamics will empower you in a healthy way to move forward. So, just a reminder, your emotions are valid and you deserve to express them without fear of judgment. And just remember those 7 emotional needs every person has, from Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist. And I want to invite you guys, as always, to reflect on some moments that you've heard in the podcast today. When have you been called dramatic? How can you reframe negative characteristics that you're showing being turned into a negative attack? And how can you take that situation and flip it to what you believe about yourself or what happened in that moment? Even if you were in the wrong, say, because we all mess up. We all say things we don't mean. If you were in the wrong, okay, what was going on there? And how do I want to show up? Well, first I want to go apologize to that person, because what I did was not okay, and that's not where I want our trust to be in this relationship. And also saying, this is how I felt, and this is how I'm still feeling about it, even if it's not fully resolved. Or I'm scared that next time this comes up, this situation, I don't want to respond in that same way. Where's the disconnect between us, and how can we bridge that gap, right? So just try to reflect on some of those things. But please keep writing, sending messages, encouraging each other and us, and we'll keep doing the podcast.
We'll just keep cranking them out.
Awesome. All right. Take care.